Oh no. It was Mi-sun's voice. Hardly more than a whisper, but it cut through my thoughts. She was sitting by a console, scrolling through some images, and I could tell from how she sounded she'd found something very bad. I started to walk over to her. What is it? She almost leapt from her chair and turned on me. What is it? It's you, Zeke. This is your doing. She was pointing to an image on the screen. It showed a man and a woman, along with two teenagers, being led into a police van by uniformed officers. Watching over them were two fads. That's my family, she said. I captured a bunch of news feeds before we went into tunnel, just to see if the fads were going to lash out at our families for what we did. She switched to another image. A haggard-looking man I recognized as Alice's father was also being arrested. There were pictures from India, Nyana's family being taken away, from Uganda, where the head of the boarding school Charles had attended was being led away in handcuffs by grim-faced men in uniforms. And then, my own mother and father, being put in the back of a police car. Off to the side, two fads looked on, and standing with them was Nora Price herself. She was looking at the camera, smirking like she knew I was going to see this. This is your fault, Mi-sun said. You said they would be okay. You said we didn't have to worry about them, but your stunt back there forced their hand. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I felt like my throat was closing up. After all my parents had been through, they were finally safe, and together. Now, they were in the hands of beings who would hurt them just for the pleasure of causing me misery. And the rest of them. I never wanted anyone's family to get hurt, but I didn't know how to say any of it. Tamrat watched this exchange. I expected her to snap at Mi-sun, to tell her to be quiet, but she said nothing. It was Charles who came to my defense. You cannot say this is Zeke's doing. Then whose is it? Mi-sun demanded. I asked that you not contact your families, Dr. Roop said. Mi-sun turned to face him, hands on her hips. And like a good little boy, Zeke did what you said, and he bullied me into doing it. I knew it was wrong. I knew I should have told them to hide, but I listened, and look what happened. Mi-sun, I began. Save it, she said, waving a hand dismissively. What do you have to tell me that will make a difference? That we'll save the galaxy? That we'll go on some stupid rescue mission and that will help our families hundreds of light years away? Let's just hope they're still alive by the time you get what you want. She turned away from me, and I knew there was no point in trying to talk to her. Not now. Fads are far more likely to hold prisoners until they are useful than to execute them needlessly, Dr. Roop said, his voice soft. And what is Nora Price likely to do? Mi-sun demanded. Dr. Roop had no answer to that, and we found ourselves in an uncomfortable silence. I coughed awkwardly. The Faddock ship was small, and there weren't even private rooms or private bunks, even. Apparently, Fads considered sleeping an inexcusable weakness, but the aft section included an escape pod that could possibly provide a little privacy, and I told the others I needed a little time alone. I went into the escape pod and shut the door. It was small, with just enough room for 5 or 6 Fads to sit in a tight squeeze. There were 2 emergency medical bays along the walls as well, but they were closed. I guessed to prevent the spread of possible contagions. There weren't even viewing windows, but it had probably never occurred to the designers that sick people might want to look out, or that their friends might want to look in. The pod gave every appearance of being minimally comfortable. On the other hand, it did seem to be maximally functional. And I noticed several boxes along the walls, including a portable medkit, food rations, and a weapons locker. These supplies, designed to aid survival under desperate conditions, only made me feel more isolated. They were like a sign that I was on my own. Maybe most of the others weren't angry with me, but they felt sorry for me, and that was almost as bad. No one had blamed me for Alice getting hurt, but as I recalled what happened during the attack, I felt sure that I ought to have done something to keep her safe. Now, it was too late, and I had no way of making things right. Me son had accused me of being a bully, of having a hero complex. Could she be right? I made a case when I believed I knew what we had to do, but so did anyone else. No one called Steve a bully when he insisted on steering the ship through some insane escape route. No one accused Alice of having a hero complex when she wanted to take a crazy risk to keep the rest of us safe. I felt sure I had a lot to contribute to the cause, that the team was better with me than without me. Now, I was going to be sitting out the most important operation we'd ever attempted. Maybe it was selfish thinking of things this way. What did it matter who saved the galaxy as long as the galaxy got saved? I believed that, but I also felt that I could make a difference, and somehow, without meaning to, I had ruined my chance to help my friends. If one of them were to be hurt or killed, if the operation were to fail, I would spend the rest of my life blaming myself. The door to the escape pod hissed open, and Tamret stepped inside. She looked uncomfortable, like she wasn't sure she should be talking to me, or if I would want to talk to her. She brushed her hair out of her face, and I was struck once again by how pretty she was. She still frightened the crap out of me, and she probably always would, but I wasn't sure I'd have it any other way. No matter what kinds of powers and ancient technology and knowledge we brought to the table, I was still sure that she was the most dangerous weapon we possessed. I thought back to all the times our enemies had underestimated her and paid the price. She was going into battle one last time, I hoped, and more than anything, I wanted to be by her side. Instead, I'd be hanging back where it was safe, and that made me worry that maybe she would be disappointed in me. In the past, I'd earned Tamret's respect by facing problems, not hiding from them. I'd stood up to enemies stronger and more dangerous than I was. How would she feel about me now that my job would be to stay out of everyone's way? Tamret came and sat down across from me. "Are you okay?" Her voice was strangely neutral, like an overworked nurse checking on a patient. I shook my head. "I'm worried about my parents, about everyone's families." "I know," she said, "but me son is wrong. It's not your fault. We're doing what we can to help them." "But I feel like I messed up," I said. "You guys are about to attempt the most insane thing ever, and I can't be there." "We'll somehow manage without you," she said, and there was no mistaking the hard edge in her voice. "Are you angry with me?" She looked away. "I just wish you hadn't messed around with Ardov. You had to go play hero, so now we've got a weaker team than we have to go into that prison." Nothing could have stung me more. I hated that me son was angry with me, but hearing this from Tamret was almost more than I could take. "I thought you, of all people—" "I'm not a person," she said. "You use that word when you're talking about your own species. I'm a being, a Rarl. I'm not like you." Where was this coming from? When had Tamret ever cared that we were from different worlds? There was a lot we didn't understand about each other's culture, but that had never mattered before. Her coldness now, the obvious accusation in her voice, shocked me. "So what?" I demanded. "Why should that suddenly make a difference?" "It made a difference on Earth," she said, "when we were locked up for being aliens. It mattered when that woman was pumping me full of chemicals so she could try to unlock my secrets. And that was just the beginning, Zeke. She had plans for me. She was going to dissect me. She told me that with a smile on her face, and I was powerless to stop her. Nora Price could be cruel, I knew that, but had she really planned to dissect Tamret? I didn't even want to think about it. The important thing was that we'd gotten Tamret out of there before she'd have the chance. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, I told her, trying to keep my voice calm. I didn't want to sound defensive. You knew we would come for you. She shook her head. I didn't know you would come in time. I had no idea your species was so nasty to other species. It wasn't just Nora Price, you know. All the humans seemed to find being cruel to aliens pretty hilarious. There's good and bad everywhere, I told her. I've seen some members of your species who aren't very nice. And some who are, she said, even though you treat them like dirt. Wait a minute, I said, feeling like I'd just been transported into an entirely different argument. Are we talking about Volonic now? She nodded. I've decided that when this is all over, I'm going back with him. After all we've been through, there are ways I can get caste protection from his family without being engaged to him. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that I belong with my own kind. Her own kind had tried to talk me into leaving her behind when she hadn't been housed with the others at the police station. It felt like cheating to bring that up, but Tamret had to know she was safer with me than she would be with him, no matter how powerful his family. She must have seen the disbelief on my face, because she crossed her arms and planted her feet, as though I might try to shove her off her opinion. I'm better off going home. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I thought we had worked all this out back on Confederation Central, and now she was telling me she wanted to return to Rarl? Not because she was obligated to, which had been the situation before, but because she wanted to. It made no sense. Tamret, have you forgotten how they treated you on Rarl? You're not safe there. After we save the Confederation, I'm sure they'll give Rarl another chance to join. And then things will be different. They'll have to be. All I know is I can't live somewhere I don't belong. In the last hour, I'd lost my powers, learned that my family had been arrested, and been tossed aside by Tamret. When my powers cut out, and I'd been plummeting towards the ground, I hadn't felt half this scared or helpless. I need to get back to working on the code, she said. I haven't given up on getting you up and running. I know you want to be part of the team. There was nothing I could say. I mean, there were a million things I felt, but I couldn't figure out how to say any of them. They all stuck in my throat. I sat there, silently, looking down while Tamret stood up and left the pod.